this is like the biggest thing for my viewers, honestly. Like I put out a little thing on my community page, like saying I was like doing some interview thing, and like everyone's immediately like, is it Jake? What are you doing, something with Jake? And like I think they're gonna be really excited for this, man. So yeah, how are you doing? How are you doing today?
Good. No, I'm glad. I was just gonna say, I think when I was like growing up listening to my favorite bands, I craved content like this. I loved it, and I hated seeing my favorite artists do interviews with people who like had this massive following or brand, but like they didn't, like you could tell they didn't even like get the music, right? Like they weren't fans. So like they asked all the wrong questions. Like I'm doing another one with, there's this kid who comments on every TikTok I post every single day. Super fan. He'll like respond to other people's comments, asking questions and stuff. And like I'm doing one with him as well, because like those are the people that I want asking the questions, right? People who get the music, not like a delusional level of fandom where it's like I like everything and I pretend I like everything, because that's not cool either. But I'm happy to do it. I think it's fun.
That's
I'm doing well. I appreciate you asking. I'm in California, enjoying a little quality time with my daughter.
oh awesome. Just there for like a getaway thing.
Yeah, just on the beach, just being lazy. It's been good.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I was like kind of shocked because I like my viewers, they tell me so much like about you and the rest of the band members that I had no idea you had children. And like, so when you texted me that, I was like, wow, I'm surprised no one's told me that, dude. Like I have huge respect for like any parents out there. So that's awesome, man. Like, so you have two daughters? Is that,
Yep.
how old are they?
1 and 3.
Wow, dude, that's awesome. Like, congrats. I know that's weird saying that when they're a little older, but congrats. That's super cool, man.
Appreciate that. They're great.
Yeah.
They're awesome.
They're feeling better? I know you said they weren't feeling too great.
Yeah. They just, when you have young kids, they're just like sick all the time.
That's how I was. Like my parents tell me when I was a kid I was sick like like 3 out of the 4 quarters of a year I was sick, you know. I'm glad to hear they're feeling better. I just had the flu, so like it seems like everyone is sick. Like I don't know what's up with that.
Yeah, it's rough out there right now for sure.
Yeah. But all right, man. I guess we'll get into the meat of it here, man. New album coming out, Family Heirlooms, dude. That's exciting. I like, first off, this might not be very important to most people, but I love the artwork. I think Icarus was like my favorite artwork you guys have done, but this new one, it's cool, and it has a new like inviting vibe for a new like chapter, if you will, for you guys.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that you like it. I think a lot of people have had that same feedback. And I have to ask, just because my anxious brain, you're recording, right?
Yeah, dude.
I hate to get to this and not be recording. Yeah, I was very very adamant that this art looked different, like that people look at it and not view it as like oh yeah, this is cool. This is exactly what I expect from this band, like an ICU album art, right? Where you see it, it's cool, and it immediately makes sense for the brand and who we are. But I wanted something to kind of catch people a little off guard, and that's exactly what we were going for. I actually wanted it to be a little bit more screwed up and dark, and the band was kind of like, okay, let's dial Jake back a little bit. We don't need ancient family members, crawling out of the trees. Weird like that. But we're excited. We definitely wanted it to be representative in a detailed way of what this record is and what it means. And there's so many Easter eggs in that artwork, so we're happy with it.
Would you say that this new album is like a new chapter for the band? Because I saw some like clips from your guys' like announcement live stream. I made like a whole video talking about the new release and everything. And like, would you say this is like a continuation of your guys' like what you guys have been doing the last 3 or 4 records, or is this like brand new, like something new to expect?
I mean, every time a band puts out music, they want to like beat their chest and say it's the heaviest thing they've ever dropped, and I'm trying to like find ways to avoid doing that during this interview. I think that if you're good at what you do, if you truly take pride in your craft, you're always getting better and you're always growing. And so, as a songwriter, I always want people to listen to the songs and be like, I can tell Jake's been working. Just like a guitar player would want that to show in the way they play. I'd say that this album is the most Citizen Soldier album we've made. What I
Okay.
mean by is, when we work with a producer like Josh Landry, he's very involved in what he wants a lot of it to sound like, right? He tends to push more into the pop lane and getting more experimental with that, which for a lot of our music in Scarecrow and ICU, I think it really served it well. I think we learned a lot, we grew. Kyle Odell, our other producer, is more of a metalhead, and he tends to push things in the heavy direction. But what I really appreciate about the work Kyle did on this record is when we needed him to step up, he did in moments. But for the most part, he was like, steer the ship.
Right.
I'm here to guide this, but like this is, and I think that there were moments where he was just like, he'd hand me the guitar and be like, what do you think for this part, or Cooper or Matt, and it was so much more collaborative in that way. And I think that is what made it sound like a version of Down the Rabbit Hole or Relentless. I say that very carefully because it's my least favorite record that we've put out ever. In the sense that, like, I think that there are moments that are more experimental and progressive that we're more equipped to execute now than we were 5 or 6 years ago, and with a producer that can make it work. I think that this album is our most successful attempt to step into who we are as a band. Icarus is a very polished, radio-friendly rock record, and I love that record. Like, I really enjoy listening to those songs. I think those songs are ear candy. I'm very proud of it. But this record is more of I don't care what anyone thinks about this. I want to make the record that Kid Jake wanted to make.
I love
Right?
that.
If I want to do a 6-minute song, I'm going to do a 6-minute song. If I want to do dual guitar solos like Miles Kennedy and Mark Tremonti would do in Alter Bridge, I'm going to do that. There's a song on this album called The Other Side of Pain that's 6 minutes long. And Cooper and Matt have these dueling solos. And I remember going back, I walked to the store to get something to eat, and I came back and Matt's solo was tracked, and I was like, are we gonna track the solo? And he's like, it's done. I was like, what? And so Kyle hits play, and I was like, oh my Lord. I told Matt, I was like, you could not have done what you just did even a few years ago. And he's like, I know, man. I know, I've been putting in the work.
That's
So
exciting.
moments like that make it special.
That's awesome. I'm looking forward to that. That's gonna be sick. Like, there's so many like boxes I have when it comes to like checking out a song, whether it's like the time length or like a certain part that I wish was there or something like that. So like that's something I'm excited for with like a longer song. And like, I always love when you guys do guitar solos, guitar duets, whatever it may be. Like, I remember in like the early days of checking you guys out, where I'd be like, oh, this song would be so cool if I had a guitar solo in it. And like the next song I checked out would have exactly that. And I'd be like, oh yeah, that's perfect right there. I like that. That's exciting, dude. The Other Side of Pain, you said that was that one?
Yeah. And I got to put a disclaimer out there for all the dudes who are like getting stoked about the 6-minute songs and the crazy guitar parts and moments. We're balancing doing what we want, but also being smart about the way we release music. So a lot of those progressive songs are going to be album tracks.
Yeah, it makes sense.
We still got to be, smart about how we approach things that way. But I think most of the songs on the record are 4 minutes.
I love that. That's
Not a
great.
song. I don't think there's a single song under 3:15. I think there was one song that was like 3:20, but we listened to it and we're just like, I don't want to add anything to this. It doesn't feel that short, So it has to be like, on a song to song basis. But The Other Side of Pain is a bizarre. It's like it's got some Metallica influence. It has a really, really cool message, and that's another thing I'm proud of with this record is that when you're writing about a lot of the same things thematically, it can become very easy to kind of become stale. you can only write the same like, hey, it's gonna be okay, get up
Right.
song, like the I'm struggling and no one gets it song before it becomes, feels like pandery. And so what's cool about that song is it's not like you're gonna make it to the other side of pain. And fun fact, that song was gonna be a collab, but me and the other artist disagreed on the direction of it. The artist was like, this should be like a we're gonna make it to the other side of pain. And I was just like, that just feels really easy.
Mm.
Like the easy. And I was like, what if it was like, man, like I don't know when this is gonna get better. I've been at this forever and I've never been this discouraged, but like I've come too far to not see that.
Mm.
I don't know if I ever will, but I'm digging my heels in, man. Like I'm just gonna lean into being stubborn, even if it never pays off.
That's
It's kind of this like not like hopeful, but not depressive. It's just kind of this like living in between kind of feeling. But I think people will relate to that a lot.
that's gonna be huge. I like that. Like you guys have done that topic like so much, like the like you're gonna be all right thing, and not like in a bad way at all. You guys like do that better than any band. Like that's not just me like sucking up. Like that is what you guys like do the best, I think. And it's cool to like have a different approach at that, and like to recognize it's been done a little bit and like to go a different route with it. So that's cool. I was also interested to hear you mentioned like getting handed a guitar. How much of a hand do you have when it comes to the instrumental processes with your guys' songs? I feel like so many bands these days, it's like they're not a band really, it's like the band, like the guitarist, the drummer, everything, they make the instrumental and like, here you go, singer, like do your thing. Is that like kind of how it goes with you guys, or you're there for it?
No, usually when we go into the studio, so it's my job to write the songs, right? So when we go into the studio, like this album, I wrote 70 to 80 hooks. And what I mean hooks, verse, chorus ideas.
Mm-hmm.
So just piano chords, top line, so melody and lyrics over it. And I take those to the band and I say, we got to narrow this down to 18 or 14 or 12 or whatever, right? And so we did that. We went to a house down in southern Utah and just argued for hours about which songs should be picked. And we picked them and finally got it narrowed down. When we get in the studio, it just depends. Like there was a song that Matt really loved. And so I was like, hey, like, let's use one of your riffs for this. Let's let this kind of be your thing. Like, it just depends. Like, one of our strengths as a band is there's no ego when it comes to like, hey, the person who has it in the moment is going to track it. The person who is on fire, like let them be on fire. This isn't about you getting your hands on everything, right? Like Juanita is by far our best acoustic guitar player. He's just got that feel and that touch. So the guys can be like, hey dude, like this is an acoustic guitar part, track it.
Right.
As far as my involvement, I grew up playing guitar. I didn't want to sing. I had my amp in my room and I would just sit there and learn all the riffs and like that was my thing. So I haven't been able to be as involved on guitar as I'd liked in the past because I've just been so like, I feel like to be the best songwriter I could be, you can't be the best at everything, right? You can't put your time into everything. And so much of my time has been in that. But I mean, I wrote the riff to Face to Face. I tracked that. I tracked all the guitars in that song.
Wow.
Guitars in that song. There are a few other songs. I actually got to track 2 of the guitar solos on this record, which was cool because I've never been able to do that. And so on this record, you'll hear guitar solos from Kyle O'Dell, me, Cooper, and Matt, which is really cool.
I just gained a new respect for you. That's super cool. That's something I did not like know that you did guitar like that.
I can't play like Matt and Cooper. I sure as hell can't play like Kyle O'Dell.
Dude,
Kyle O'Dell is going to be replacing Cooper on this spring tour, by the way, on guitar for us, because Cooper's having a baby. So that'll be really cool to let him play that. But I think what'll be cool is people will be listening to this record and they'll be like, oh, is this a Matt solo or a Jake solo? Or
right. Because there's different flavors from each individual member,
yeah.
Right?
Kyle's very shreddy. I mean, Matt can shred too, for sure. Like I'm very melody driven. Like I love solos that make you feel, that aren't just like, movement for the sake of movement. Not that they're like that. They're awesome at what they do, but it was fun. It was fun to be involved that way.
Dude, don't sell yourself short. That face to face riff, that's a beater, man. That's cool to know you did that. That's sick.
Well, to peel the curtain back a little bit further, what's cool about that song is Neil from 3 Days Grace produced that song
Wow.
with and that riff was originally just the bridge.
Mm.
Old school Citizen Soldier string riff part for the verses, and he wasn't into that, and he was just like, this bridge riff is sick, like why isn't this just the main riff? And I was like, that's the riff that I just like randomly like, okay, we'll just do this weird bendy riff. And sometimes that's when you do your best work, right? Is when you're not stressed and you're not like putting too much thought into it. You just do something random and kind of sit with it before you judge it to death. And so, and yeah, that song is in our top 5 of all our
Yeah,
songs.
that was one of the first I ever checked out by you guys. That's super interesting. I've like noticed this over the years. It seems to be like a common theme with an artist like starting out in a band and like them wanting to do guitar, and they somehow end up being the vocalist and like being like, holy shit, I can sing crazy, and like that sticks. Like that's happened with so many bands. Like there's a lot, but like just offhand, like Motionless in White, Asking Alexandria, like there's just a lot of bands where the singer was the guitarist, but somehow they became the singer, and it's like here we are, decades later.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy how it's worked out. And maybe someday when I get brave enough, we'll do 3 guitars on stage. I would love to do that. I need to get singing live under control before I throw something else into the mix, because that's the hardest part about this whole experience. Is singing live is tough. Delivering live is tough. It'd be cool someday to play guitar though, for sure.
Awesome. So you mentioned like about guitar solos, how like this is something like growing up you loved on a record. What are some bands that you grew up loving and like you fell in love with, man?
Shinedown,
There you go.
huge influence. I think You Give Love a Bad Name by Bon Jovi was the first song I heard that made me want to learn how to play guitar. I didn't realize that being into hair metal isn't cool. I don't really care. I loved it. I loved it as a kid. I thought it was
Yeah.
so cool. I learned all those riffs. Love all that stuff. Def Leppard, Bon Jovi. I learned a lot of that 70s, 80s metal stuff.
Yeah.
It was 45 by Shinedown. That was the song that I heard that made me want to write songs.
Yeah,
I was
man.
like, feel like this is making me feel things I've never felt before. So I would say Shinedown. I think my favorite band growing up was Alter Bridge.
Awesome.
And the reason I loved them so much, I gotta shout out Red too. I got to write a song with Anthony from Red when I was in Nashville not too long ago. I hope it gets released at some point. It'd be cool to use that song. I love that band. I think Michael from Red has I love bands that can be heavy, but the vocalist is still focused on being emotive
Hmm.
and telling a story. What I love about Alter Bridge is as a kid, I feel like I just like coming from like hair metal and like heavy guitar playing, but also like growing up on country music. Like I listen to country music driving around with my family all the time. I wanted to hear storytelling, but also like hear solos and riffs and dark moments. And what I loved about Alter Bridge is you have this incredible vocalist that it comes across as so genuine and sincere. And you also have this guitar player who can make you feel things with a guitar solo.
Yeah.
Like it's not just like flexing, it's not just the cool factor, it's not just an ego move. Like Mark Tremonti is masterful in picking his punches when it comes to being melodic and then just, being inhuman and shredding his face off. And I think being able to listen to songs that scratched all of those itches for me, I was just like, this is everything I've ever wanted in a band.
Have you checked out Marx's new album?
Yeah, I like a lot of the Tremonti stuff. The Alter
Mhm.
Bridge stuff is still my
Yeah.
favorite.
Yeah.
Um, but a lot of Tremonti stuff, a lot of riffs that he's put out in
Yeah.
his solo stuff. And I'm like, I'm glad he's doing this because I'd be sad if these had just been on the shelf forever.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm happy to hear you like Alter Bridge, and that's something I've always kind of said when like talking to someone about Alter Bridge. Is like I don't know if anyone else shares this thought as well, but I've always kind of viewed Alter Bridge as like a way more like technical shine down in a way, like structure wise. It's something I've always thought for some reason. Like I listened to Shinedown like way before Alter Bridge, but as soon as I found Alter Bridge, I was like, it gives me the same vibe as Shinedown. It's just way like there's a lot more intensity, especially like in the guitar work and longer songs and stuff like that. But sorry, I don't mean to cut you off there, but there's something I've always been wondering reacting to you guys. Do you have any influence from Chris Daughtry?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
I would say, I mean, I remember I saw him in concert opening for Bon Jovi. That was my first rock show ever.
Really? Wow.
Daughtry and Bon Jovi at the Pepsi Center in Denver. And he brought it. He is an incredible vocalist. It's been interesting, like as a kid, my family watched American Idol religiously growing up. So it's been crazy watching his journey from that to doing the rock thing. I think kind of getting pressured by RCA to shift into a pop lane that I don't think he was very happy in. And then now he's kind of out of his record contract and kind of
he's doing some intense stuff now. Like he had the artificial track with like a breakdown and scream. I was like, whoa, what just happened? That was unreal.
He's doing what he wants now, you know, and don't get me wrong though. I mean, I remember when Waiting for Superman came out and I was like, this song is huge. Like, this is a huge song. And like, I love all the heavy stuff too, right? But I've always been like, you know, and I see it with our fans. Like, I know that we have a portion of our fan base that wants the heavy stuff, and we have a portion of the soccer moms driving their kids that only want the Daughtry stuff, right? And that's okay. Like, but I'm never gonna just do one. Like, that's not me, you know. But I'm a sucker for a power ballad.
Yeah.
Hair metal was kind of like that too. It's like it's glam and they have the big guitars and stuff, but like everything's a power ballad. So I think I was influenced by that as well.
That's cool. I was that was something I was going to ask you, was about like how you feel about heavier music, because I see like a lot of bands, like you hear from the songwriter, like the singer, and like it's weird to find out like they don't actually like heavy music. They're just a part of that band and they're just, you know, doing it to do it. So I was curious like how much you liked it, because I remember when we did the life sentence thing, I remember you was talking about how you're probably not gonna push that hard when it comes to like harsh vocals again, and that made me like kind of like ponder. I was like, was it because you just weren't like really enjoying it, or like maybe just like not going that crazy with it, for instance?
Yeah, it just didn't feel. It felt like the driving motivator behind that was people. There's a portion of the fan base that will think this is really cool,
Right.
as opposed to I feel this. I really want to do it. But to be fair, like that song is probably the darkest song I've ever written, and it merited a really heavy approach, right? So, I mean, I think it's just about being honest about what I want to do and what that's going to look like. And I think where I've always been comfortable, and I'm not saying comfortable like in a complacent way, but like what I love is heavy music that still keeps, where the vocals are still focused on creating an emotive component to that, right? Like I think a band like Red is a really good. There's a record called "Of Beauty and Rage" that's one of my favorites by Red, and granted, he screams a lot more than we ever have. But my point is, like, I think that's a better barometer for where we want to be as a band. Is we want to focus on the storytelling and letting the really dark, heavy moments be instrumentally driven. But I mean, that could change. You
Right.
know, like on this record, it's just, I never once thought like, what do people want us to do here? I was like, what do I want to listen to? Like, what does Jake with his iPod Nano on the bus going to school in 2000 whatever want to hear in this moment, right? Like what gets me excited? And that's been a really healthy shift for me, is to be really focused on what sets me on fire, what gets me excited. Like there was a moment when we were listening back to one of the songs, and I just like screamed something. I was walking around listening to it and just screamed something because I was so excited. That may or may not have included the F word. But I think everyone was just like, "Whoa! Like, what's going on?" Like, I was just stoked.
Right.
You just won a big game, and that's like, if you're not feeling like that when you create something, what do you do?
Right. I think that's something people should like maybe be more accessible to is having heavier like instrumentally driven songs and not like having to have those heavier vocals. Like I think that's something that could come possibly from your like Alter Bridge love is like I remember listening to them a lot like years ago and being like, "Oh, this is so cool. This part's so heavy," but like oh, if they had screams, it'd be so much cooler. But now that I've like grown up and matured, and I look back on those songs, and I'm like, it didn't call for it. You know, like, you don't have to force those screams to like make it some big thing. Like it hits how it was. You know. So I
Well, what's funny?
good.
Um, what's funny is like these songs. I feel like on Family Heirlooms have they did such a we did such a good job of making them the best versions of what they're saying. And what I mean by that is like if someone's like, let's add this guitar part, let's add this, let's do this, it's like, okay, like is this helping this song say what it's saying more? Or is it just clutter at
Right.
this point, right? And so I think a good example of that is like there's a song on this album where we were finishing it up and I was like, where does this live? Like, where from the depths of Jake's brain does this song come from? And I was like, oh, it kind of like feels like my love affair with Journey in like Safety Suit. Safety Suit's a band that a lot of people haven't heard of, but had some awesome. I mean, they kind of lived in that Daughtry space, I should say, of pop rock, but awesome songs. And they had a guitar player who was nuts, great live. And I kind of leaned into that on that song. That song kind of has this big outro, and we do some kind of like Neil Sean-esque uh, shreddy stuff on the outro that feels very big and 80s-esque and atmospheric. And so I think it was just fun to lean into, what is our melting pot of influences as opposed to, there's so many bands trying to sound like, I mean, it's funny to talk to Kyle Odell. He's like, if one more band comes to me and says, I want to sound like Death of Peace of Mind, I'm going to put a bullet in my brain. And it's true. Like bands are just like, make us sound like Bad Omens, make us sound like Bring Me the Horizon. And it's like, there are so many bands trying to sound like the big band, right? And it's like, be different, do something weird. Like, do a song that has influences from Journey and Metallica and Enya and Lamb of God and Halsey and like what just be weird. Be
Right.
weird about it. Be yourself.
There's a big difference between being inspired by something that you feel like a huge love towards and just like doing it for the sake of it. You know, like there's such a huge wave of that right now with bands trying to sound like those two bands specifically, Bad Omens and Bring Me. It's like I know they're huge and like they have a lot of influence, but you can tell when it's not coming from like a place where they like it. They're like, oh, that sound is blowing up right now. We got to do that right now to take off. And it's like, what are you really doing it for then at that point? Like what's the point?
Yeah, and I mean every now and then like we'll be in the process and someone's like, I don't know, this sounds like a little dated. Is that okay? And I was like, do we like it? Like who cares? Like we can try and make something that sounds fresh and it sounds like we're chasing the bands on the top of Octane right now on the radio, or we can do something dated and people can complain about that. It's like just do what you like, do what makes you feel something. And I think at the end of the day we made songs that I mean like Matt at one point was walking around the room when we were listening back to one song and he's like, this is the best song you've ever written. Like this is the best song you've written. And so like that's all that matters at the end of the day, is that excitement.
Especially like where you guys are in your career now, you can be like that. Like I could understand like a band that are trying to start out, they're on their second, third album, they're still trying to like get their break. It's like, all right, what do we need to do to get big? But you guys have gained like so much success doing what you've done that you can afford to just be like, what do we want to do? Like, what do we love? What makes us happy? And that's it's good to be able to do that.
Well, we had so many, like we had a lot of really good quality. There are probably some demos that didn't make this record that should have, but they were like songs that made too much sense, like songs that were really well written, but weren't as like from the heart.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that on this record, after Icarus, it was like, well, it's radio, keep it at 3 minutes, do this, do that. And again, like I really love that record. But ironically, the only song not written for radio, only two that were written as ballads for the record were the two biggest songs on the record. And so on this record, I remember just being like, I want to make a concept record.
Mm-hmm.
I was in a writing session. What's funny about this is I was in a writing session with Kathy Summers and Nina Ossoff, who I love, some of my favorite co-writers. And we wrote, so this was after the Icarus thing.
Right.
And I'm fried. I'm just like, burden pops off. I'm like, thank the Lord. Like we needed that. We were hoping for that, but I'm toast. I'm dead. I need a break from this. And I had scheduled a session with them. And I wanted to cancel it, but I was like, no, you know what? Let's just do it. And I got to the session. I was like, guys, I got to warn you, I just got nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And Kathy's like, well, can I read a list of ideas to you? I have some hook ideas. And I was like, yeah. And she's like, it ends with me. And I was like, okay, hold on. What's the idea there? And I latched onto that very quickly. And I immediately, I just started typing up stuff on my phone, and I had the chorus written in 2 to 3 minutes.
Oh yeah.
I remember I wrote, verse, not the chorus. And I remember just reading back to her, my therapist knows your name and cycles you're repeating, but you always deflect the blame. You're scared to see me healing. And we talked about how cool it would be to write a song from the perspective of someone who's leaving an abusive relationship, whether it's a parent or a spouse or whatever. And, recognizing just because you've allowed for me to inherit this generational trauma or this generational chain of abuse, it does not mean I have to continue it. I can break all of this and make this decision that will save generations of people from pain, and how powerful that is. And how many, there's so many people out there in the world who feel like their life has so little meaning, or they can't do anything impactful in this life. And it's hard to see how immensely impactful you can be on future generations, because we just can't see what's going to happen after us. But I see it, people make that decision to change, and it saves their family, it saves their children, and who knows, their children and their children. And so we're in that writing session and we write that song. And I had that thought of, man, it'd be so cool if this were a theme of the album, or this were the title track or something. And then I was like, okay, but this is way too early. I can't be in a box. Let's just write. And then I kept writing and writing and writing. And after we had narrowed down the record to 18 songs, I was like, hold on. And I'm shifting them around, and I'm like, this is a story. It Ends With Me is the last track on the record. And the first track on the record is a song called Figure Me Out. And I was like, this is somebody in trauma therapy. This is and I, as a therapist, I see it. I know what it's like to take a client for the first time and to have to earn their trust. I have a feel for where they are emotionally. They feel burned, they feel overwhelmed, they're exhausted. And you got to earn that trust before you can say a word to them that's going to resonate. And so what's cool about this album is that from the beginning to the end, it's the ups and downs of someone going through trauma therapy. And I could explain every single track to you. You could ask me right now about any single song, and I can tell you exactly what that means as far as the person in therapy and what part of therapy they're in. But what's cool about that is you can also take these songs out individually, and they're absolutely relatable to anybody, because it's accessible in that way too. So I remember talking to the band, and they were like, I don't know, is it too specific? Is it not going to resonate? And I was like, I don't care. I'm excited.
Right.
I'm excited to tell people. I'm excited to get on this Zoom interview with you and talk to you about this. And that's what matters. That's what's going to resonate with people. I don't want to just be another rock band where I'm on Facebook asking people to vote in some stupid radio poll. I don't want to be that. I want people to be able to be like, I'm listening to Citizen Soldier, and it's different because this, and this. You should check it out. Right. It's different. And it's so hard to be different in a genre that's so congested with so much of the same crap. All
I like that about the album being like a concept record, but like you said, like the songs go hand in hand and they tell this journey, but you can dissect each song and it's like great on its own. Like it has its own thing. You don't have to have one to have the other, you know? I that's exciting. I'm glad you put some insight on that outro track because when I did my video like talking about you guys doing this album announcement, when I went through the track list, I saw that title and like it immediately grabbed me. I was like, that one I'm excited about. That one I'm curious about. So I'm excited for that.
well, that song is wild. Um, and what's crazy about it is like I took it to Kyle Odell and we're listening to it, and I was like, we're listening to just like because when we track the record, we just put down the piano chords and we track my vocals, all my vocals, and then we sit with it. We're like, okay, what do we do with this? Like, we have the canvas. What do we do now? And I was like, man, like this is hospital bed. Like it'd be so easy for us to just do like the Crown the Empire um, picked kind of hooky verse thing with some uh, like lo-fi drum beats or production, and then just have like a big chorus and keep it like groovy and like pop rock. And I was like, okay, that's the obvious thing. What's the opposite of that? And Kyle's like, metal. I was like, let's do that. And we found a way to make it like groovy metal-ish. It's still a rock song, but we throw some weird curveballs in that song just because we know it's the last song on the record. It's a big statement. That'll be a fun one to watch reactions to because it's just we wanted it to be a weird roller coaster, and that was a big thing. Like when we were recording these songs, every now and then we'd be like, okay, like where do we put a curveball? Like we don't want to ruin the songs. There's some songs that are like down the middle because we're like, this is great, don't mess with it. Like don't ruin it just to try to be different. Let it be a good song. But we know that you can only do the down chorus after the bridge and then back to the chorus so many times, right? Like, can we throw a guitar solo in after verse one? Can we end with a guitar solo? Can we like do a down bridge at the end of the last chorus? You know, like how do we like make this different and not predictable? And I think that's a song where we got the most weird with that for sure.
Awesome. I like hearing about how you conversate with your band members about creating music. And that kind of leads me to something I wanted to ask you about. This is a little off topic from the album, but I wanted to ask you about, I understand that you had like a solo like thing before CS, right? Like it was just your name. I was curious because I myself and like so many of my viewers like have like we make our own music, you know, and like as solo, like I do my own shit. I don't have like a band. And I have so many people like in my Discord server like that watch my videos. Like we talk about making music on our own and like what a struggle that is. And obviously you did that on your own, and now you're like at such a huge success in the music industry. What is like the biggest piece of advice you can give to someone trying to make it like in a solo music career?
Well, my solo stuff, I was screwing around in end of high school, and I was too lazy to take it down, and I'm embarrassed that I didn't.
Well,
Uh,
I myself haven't checked that out, but I know people like it a lot because I constantly get people asking me to check those songs out, and I've been meaning to. I just have not gotten around to it.
it's a good it's a good measure of my growth, and I'll leave it at that. I think that it's healthy to look back and realize that I've grown a lot as a writer, and I don't know that I necessarily knew what I wanted to say at that point, and it's hard to be a great storyteller when you don't know what story you're really wanting to tell. You know, I knew I wanted to help people, but I wasn't really sure what that was going to look like. To answer your question, I think my biggest piece of advice to anyone is don't let the noise and pressure and distractions of the world keep you from developing yourself. Um, that's number one. I think stop looking at social media to consume. Don't scroll. Don't look at what other bands are doing. I don't. Sometimes I just can't do it because it gets overwhelming. It's like, oh man, this is awesome. Why didn't I write this? You know,
Yeah.
not do that, you know? Oh, this hook is so good. Why didn't I do that? So I think that it's easy to get discouraged. Like, oh, this band has more monthly listeners. Oh, this guy's doing this. Oh, this guy got signed to a deal. Oh, this guy got a big opening slot for this band. It's like, shut all that noise off and focus on getting better at your craft. Mark Tremonti had an interview recently where he said the biggest mistake guitar players make is they learn how to shred and they never learn how to become songwriters. And I think that's such good advice. Like, there are insane guitar players that are playing bars and in cover bands and in Nashville. And I'm not downing that at all. Like, that's, you know, any way to make a living in this industry is amazing, right? But like, some of these dudes playing stadium shows play power chords. You know, it's the songs. The songs are what make the living in music. And so I think that if you want to be successful in this industry, get really good at the thing that matters the most, which is songwriting. You know, there are so many people that can play the Avenged Sevenfold solos. Like, go learn how to write songs and write good hooks. And that doesn't make you a hack. That doesn't make you a sellout. You can love heavy music and still understand songwriting, right? So I think that's one part. The other thing that goes hand in hand with that is get out of your echo chamber. Like, I am such a, like, I was stuck in the same place as a songwriter for so long before I started doing co-writes. Because in rock especially, we have this weird thing, like this ego thing where it's like, oh, you're a sellout if you co-write. Oh, you're a sellout if you do this. Like, I have to write it all by myself. And it's like, okay, so like, do you want a doctor operating on you that's never learned from other doctors? Like, they've only like, they're just going off of what they feel. Like, be cool. Like you become an expert at your craft by learning from people better than you, right? Like, I can't tell you, there's nothing that gets me more high than working with writers that I love and respect that could write circles around me, that I'm in a session with them and I bring up something and they're like, wow, that's great. Let's do that, you know, and like feeling like equals with them, that's incredible. But you don't get there by just writing your own stuff and telling, like, hyping yourself up on how good you are and not showing it to anyone and just ignoring anyone who criticizes you. You know, you have to get over your pride and write stuff and send it to people that aren't your friend. Send it to people that will actually tell you what they think about it, and ask the right questions. Don't say, what do you think? Because they're going to say, oh, that's cool, man. You know, like, hey, what do you think are 2 or 3 things about this that could make this stronger?
I love that you said that about writing with people, because that's actually a desire of mine that I want to like get my viewers and like people in my Discord server to do together more. Like, in my Discord server, I have like a channel. It's like, you know, talk to other artists, because there's so many people that watch my videos that are trying to do their own solo thing. And I've been multiple times, I'm like, hey, you guys need to like get in here and like talk together and like figure some stuff out, because that's like a healthy thing to do. And what you said about like blocking out the noise, that's something I wish I learned really early on, because like I've been working on, I don't mean to talk about me at all, but like I've been working on like my first album for almost 5 years now, because I made my first song, put it out, and it's like, oh yeah, this is great. And then like I made like reaction videos, like, hey, go check out my new song. And it's horrible, and like I, you know, got that from the comments. And ever since then, I've just been like restarting and restarting. I'll like completely finish my album, and then I'll like give it a week, listen to it, and I'm like, it's bad. I gotta redo it. I gotta redo it. And so that's something I wish I learned early on, was to like not. And something else was like I was rushing it so hard because I want to get as much music out as I can, because I've like written a lot, and I'm like, okay, I gotta get this one out so I can go to the next one. And what you said about like blocking out that noise is something I've like fairly recently finally grasped, and it's very helpful actually.
Well, and I also say, like, I'm going to contradict what I said and contradict what you say, but I'm not. I just really want to like add another layer to it. I also don't think there's anything wrong with releasing your stuff. Like, that's a great way to get feedback. And I know that trolls on YouTube are not the best way to get that because it's not genuine feedback, right? But there's some older songs that we have out that I just cringe to even think about that they exist, right? And that's okay. Like that's growth, you know? And there are some people that love those songs and I'll never understand why, but that's okay. Like I just think that people also, so get out of your echo chamber, and I'm going to add avoid analysis paralysis. So I'm just as picky as anyone, right? Like for every verse on Icarus, for example, I wrote 3 or 4 verse ideas for each song, and then I narrowed it down to the 2 best, and then I sat with those for a couple weeks, and then like it was maddening. But at the same time, it's like you. I didn't want to put out what anyone care. I didn't want to put out I'm not okay. Those songs gave me a career in music.
Right.
So like every time I see comments about like, they're putting out too many songs or this or that, I'm just like, whatever, dude. Like I get that. From the outside looking in, it's easy to say that, but at the same time, it's like the songs that pay my mortgage were songs that I thought were B-sides.
Mm.
And that was a great learning experience for me. And so I'm not saying like, quantity over quality, just release everything that crosses your brain. Like, no, it's good to have a filter. It's good to put out your best work and represent yourself in a really good way. But I also think like there's so many kids who are like, okay, I can't play my first show until I do this, this, and this. And what if only 5 people show up? And what if only it's like, play the show, dude. Go to the open mics. Go write the songs, go do the co-writes and ask, how can I get better? 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 The people who get good are out there doing stuff. The people who never change are the ones sitting in their bedrooms, writing and not showing anyone anything they're doing. Like those are the kids who never get better, right? And it's hard because it's terrifying to go somewhere and to sing and to put yourself out there. But I think that's what held me back for the longest time. Was I was afraid to just go do the thing. Like it took playing shows to learn that I had vocal damage.
Mm.
I needed a professional vocal coach, and I had to relearn the entire way that I sing. And I'm still working on that, by the way. But I'm in an infinitely better spot now than I was 5 years ago. But what if I had waited 2 more years to do that? I'd be 2 more years behind. So
I can already tell you, like, people watching this are like, that advice you just gave is going to help a lot of people, like I myself too. So thank you for that. I want to go back to the therapist. That is something I didn't know until not like very long ago. If you don't mind me asking, like, was that before CS, or that was like, I believe that was after? No, yeah.
Well, it was. I was hospitalized. Wrote "Let It Burn" in the hospital, or at least the premise of it. And I knew that like I wanted to tell my mental health story. I didn't necessarily know that'd lead to me being a clinician, right? I think like the timeline is like, so Citizen Soldier is all happening right here, right? And like at the same time, my normal life is happening. And I think I was recovering, I was living at home, I was learning how to be an adult again. And I got my first job. I remember like my parents like encouraging me, like, go do something for work that you like want to do. Don't think twice about what it pays. Like, go find something that you actually care about. And I was like, man, I loved peer tutoring in high school. I loved working with the special ed kids. Maybe I'll do something like that. And I went and worked at a treatment center for kids on the autism spectrum. And I fell in love with it. I loved it. And in those programs, they had therapists that the kids would work with. And I went to meetings with those therapists, and I was like, oh my gosh, like that is so cool what they get to do with these kids, to have that level of trust and to be able to impact somebody that deeply. And so I worked in those programs for like almost a decade. I was a house manager. I was responsible for like a house of 12 to 14 kids at a time. Which I could never go back and do it again. It was hard work. It was draining, but loved those kids, loved that job. And I think that's what drove me to go to school. And I got my bachelor's in social work from the University of Utah. And then I got my master's of social work from the University of Utah.
Wow, that's like That's like a superhero story, man. Like that's like, you know, therapist by day, like singer by night, like that that's beautiful, dude. Like that's awesome. Like I got nothing but respect for that.
Well, I spend most of my days cleaning up poopy diapers and putting Miss Rachel on, so I'm not ropey as most days. But I love it. Like um, and I'm just learning, man. Like I make mistakes as a therapist all the time. I'm young. I'm still just kind of figuring it out and trying to be humble and learn. Um, but my biggest goal is just to be like I've learned that, you know, I work with a lot of women who have been hurt by men. And I've learned how valuable it is to just be a safe male presence where like what they're bringing to me emotionally isn't too much. It isn't wrong. It's not judged. It's just, hey, you feel what you feel. And like you feeling safe with me, telling me about it is more important to me than my pride.
Hmm.
Right? That's where I try to be with most people because, you know, I'm gonna say things that rub my clients the wrong way. I'm gonna screw up. You know, I'm gonna do things that maybe hurt their feelings every now and then, but like that's great practice for a real relationship. Like, oh, I can bring how I feel to someone and they're gonna own it and care about me more than their own pride. And you know, when people realize that a real relationship can look like that, I think that's powerful. So I'm trying to learn. I'm trying to do good where I can. And you know, when you're a therapist, you're going to have people that no show and people that don't feel like you're the right fit. And so to stay sane, you just have to kind of collect the good moments. You know, just collect when it does work, when someone really feels connected to you and you're able to see them accomplish some really real healing. You know, that's how you have to look at it. You can see 100 people, and if you just really help one, it's incredible. Like you don't have to help everyone. They can find someone else, you know, like you don't have to be everyone's silver bullet.
Mm.
But I've loved it. It's been awesome.
Do you think like the music you make, the emotional, like very serious music you make and being a therapist, do you think those um contribute to having like real life skills when it comes to like your personal relationships, whether it's like with your significant other? Do you think that makes you a better father as well, being so, because like being a therapist and making the music you make, you're obviously very in touch with your like emotional side of yourself, you know? Do you think that makes you a better father, significant other, or whatever?
No and yes. No, because I don't think there's a single therapist that doesn't think, man, if my clients knew my personal life situation, they would not come to me for help ever. Like I'm way more screwed up than they are, right? Like because you know, we feel like we have to have it all together. You know, we're trying to model this emotional strength and you know, I think that it's very different to listen to someone's problems when you're in the zone. It's for 50 minutes and then to go home and like practice what you preach, right? Those are two very different things. So I say no in that sense. Like, I don't think that by default, because you're a therapist, you're going to be able to be better equipped to deal with your own issues or be a better spouse or whatever. I guess when I say no, I'm saying more it's not guaranteed, right? It doesn't equivalent that. But I do think that like emotional intelligence is huge, right? Like just having the tools and like it's opened up my mind because there's so many things in my marriage that are night and day different and better because it just clicked for me how big of a problem I was,
Mm.
right? I brought this anger into my marriage that I didn't even know existed in me, which was rooted in some really deep depression that I was ignoring. And you know, I've done some couples therapy myself as the client, and that was huge for me in learning like what are my patterns and how do those affect the person that I'm with that I love, and what are their patterns and where are we triggering each other? Like, I think that the emotional intelligence absolutely helps, but at the end of the day, you have to be willing to make the sacrifices and do the work, right? So I think that. There are so many people out there that um, they look problematic, they look like bad individuals, and what I've learned is like, man, I would not be proud of people seeing a lot of my moments before I learned a lot. and how to take a really hard, long look at myself. And I'm not trying to make excuses for people. Like accountability was part of my growth, right? But I've learned to not see people as this like, everyone's malleable. Everyone can change. Everyone can grow. Like a lot of these people just don't know better, and they have good hearts, and they just need the tools to be able to kind of wake up to the reality of the situation and be able to make some changes. So I do think that therapy, I see patterns in my clients, like they'll bring up, and this is countertransference. It's a term in therapy where like a client will bring up something and like it triggers personal stuff for you. And you have to be careful about how you compartmentalize that. There have been moments where like they'll bring up something and I'm like, oh yeah, I could probably be a little bit better at that with my wife as well. That definitely is hurtful and not very considerate of her feelings. And so at the end of the day, it's just how much you're willing to put into practice what you've learned and actually do something about it.
Thank you for answering that so in depth, because that was like, I know that's not your a very stereotypical question, not music related really, but it was something I was like really curious about, like how you'd answer that. So just thank you for going so in depth on that. But yeah, man, that's cool to have that be able to have that insight towards people. And it's like you said, man, like everyone's human and people like grow so often. Like it's weird because obviously you've only lived your life, so you only know from your perspective, but you can only imagine it's like that for everyone. It's like you can do something 2 weeks ago and then look back on it and you're like, why did I do that? Why did I think like that? Like what, that was not good idea at all. Like it's crazy the way you mature and grow. Like I do that often. So yeah.
Well, it took the longest time for it to click for me. Like my defensiveness and my pride almost lost me my marriage. And it took, sometimes things just don't click until we hear it from the right person in the right moment. I don't know why that is. People joke about like, oh, I've been telling my husband this for years and his therapist says something and now he finally hears it, but sometimes like when someone who's too close to you tells you it, like it doesn't translate for some reason. But like it clicked for me at one point that, this person that I claim to love, I'm not hearing them because I'm putting all their emotions back on them because I am not willing to take a real hard look at myself and the things that I need to change and my issues and my baggage, right? And so it's easier to deflect back onto that person and I'm pushing that person away. And I think I was in a session with my therapist and I think it was, are you choosing being comfortable over showing up for this person that you care about? I was like, that cut, and that was a wake up call. It's okay for the people that we care about to tell us things that hurt and that upset us and that, like we have to be able to care more about them than we do about our own pride, and if we're not willing to change and grow and improve, then those people are going to feel just totally unheard and alone.
I love the self-awareness you have for that. I feel like a lot of people, and like myself included, like could really benefit from being that self-aware. So that's great.
That's the piece. Like if you're like being a therapist, like what's the best asset that comes from that? I think it's that, right? But that's not enough on its own. You have to add. Like I do think like I have a lot of moments where I'm like, okay, what's happening right now? I'm getting better at recognizing like, what am I doing? Why am I doing it? How can I change what's happening right now? Just the other day, I was like getting really focused on band stuff. And I was like, this is not excitement. This is anxiety. I'm getting sucked into the anxiety of the band. And like for years, it became this like anxious roller coaster I was stuck in all the time. And I've finally learned how to really detach in a healthy way when I need to. And, like our whole happiness depends on our ability to learn ourselves. I really believe that. Like, learn your own patterns, like, call yourself out on your own BS and be able to spot it when it surfaces. Like, being able to be on top of those things is everything because no one else is going to do it for you. Like, that's all you have. So I think self-awareness, and I think that's the term for sure.
That's awesome, man. Do you, like, with your clients, do you ever or often tell them about Citizen Soldier? Or is there any time where you have a client and they already know about your music?
There's got to be complete separation.
Okay.
So ethically, if someone comes into therapy because I'm Jake from Citizen Soldier, I am not a ethically sound therapist for them because they already have this relationship with me through the music. They already have this kind of perception of me that isn't appropriate for a therapeutic relationship, right? They need to be able to challenge me.
Mm-hmm.
They need to tell me, no, you're off on this. That's not right. I don't feel that way. Or this isn't working. Or I don't like this, right? That's everything in a therapeutic relationship. And it's a conflict of interest too, right? Like, I'm getting paid from the band. That's my main source of income for my family. And so when I got into the field, I told my supervisor, I really want to have separation here as much as possible. And I'll be honest, it's a work in progress. I'm trying to figure it out because when people reach out to me, my first question is, what state are you in? My second is, what do you know about me? And the ones who are like, well, this song or whatever, I'm like, hey, I appreciate that, but I can't be an option for you for these reasons. When someone's really confused and I ask them about, like, what do you know about me? They're like, that you're a therapist. And I'm like, okay, we're good, we're safe, awesome.
Right.
It's awkward though because, like, when you have someone's phone number, it automatically, like, recommends them on Facebook and it recommends them on TikTok and all these things. So, like, even if they don't know who Citizen Soldier is when we start, they always find out. Always that session where they come in 2 or 3 sessions in where they're like, hey Jake, and I'm like, you saw me on TikTok, didn't you? And they're like, yeah. And we have to have that conversation, and they can still be a client. Because if things are going well, it's not their fault that they came across it, right? But I have to set a very strict boundary of, hey, this can never become about me. This can never become about Citizen Soldier. This is therapy. This is you. It's all about you. And the second it becomes about me, it's not therapy anymore, and I can't be your therapist.
I love that because I feel like so many people, if they were in your shoes, they would use that position to be able to promote what you do in Citizen Soldier. It's like, oh, you're going through this, I got the song for you. Go stream this here. It's like, I feel like so many people in that spot would use that to benefit themselves. So, like, huge respect that you don't do that.
That's my biggest fear. I mean, it'd just be gross to try and make it this cash grab thing. Like, I think the worst extreme of that would be like, I'm gonna go private pay $150 an hour and just, milk this thing, like, and just let people talk to me and vent for 50 minutes. Like, no, I want to be a damn good therapist. I want to be great at what I do, and I want it to have nothing to do with Citizen Soldier, right? I don't want to be a good therapist because of Citizen Soldier. I want to be a good therapist because Jake has put in the work to be great at what he does in his craft. So, I mean, and there have been times where people have lied about knowing who I am, and I find out 4 or 5 sessions in, and it's incredibly uncomfortable. It's really, it's just icky, like, because I feel betrayed, like, I feel like my boundaries haven't been respected, right? And it hurts them because then they feel guilty and uncomfortable that they weren't honest with me. And then it's a lose-lose because I feel weird, and then they feel weird because now they can't just enjoy the music. And it's like, man, like, if we just hadn't done this, you could be loving the music and give me a hug at the shows and hanging out,
right.
So I think there might even come a point where I just become referral only or work for something, because then there's no risk of that, or a low risk of that.
You don't have to answer this at all, but this is something that just, like, popped in my mind. Which do you, like, value more? Is it the therapist, or is it CS? Like, or not, value is not the right word, but, like, which one? I don't know how to word it. It's just something I just, like, thought of, was curious about.
I think the shelf life of Citizen Soldier is shorter than therapy for me. I don't want to be the 50-year-old uh, rocking out on stage. I don't want to do this forever. But who knows, you know? I mean, maybe I will be. I think both, well, I can tell you this, therapy definitely fills up a cup. What I mean by that is like, you know, things that fill up your cup that like are fulfilling to you and really like heal your soul. Therapy fills up a cup that nothing associated with the band can. It's just very different, you know, like being in a room one on one with that person and being able to just show up for them in that way is really cool and really special. And I see things in that room that are really amazing and inspiring, as you can tell in the songwriting, right? So, and you, oh man, you like the songs on this record have never been more specific to what I do. And some people would call that a weakness because they're like, oh, you're making it too niche or whatever, and like it's not accessible enough or whatever. But it's like, screw it. Like this is what I do. This is who I am, right? And so I think both are incredibly valuable. I love both, and I think you can't have one without the other because to be able to go to shows and do VIP stuff and meet people and just like hug them and listen to them and like connect with them in ways that I can't with my clients.
Mm-hmm.
But like, you know, like I've had clients ask for hugs, and I don't do hugs. As a therapist, that might sound kind of cold, but like I am a man, and I work with a lot of women who've been hurt by men, and so I just want a very strict boundary there as far as, you know, I want to respect you and that professionalism, and create an environment that makes you feel safe. And like I go to shows and I'm hugging everyone, you know? So like I get to connect with people in different ways that I wouldn't be able to otherwise. And my therapy clients, like they get time with me that, you know, I'm like having these rushed 2-minute conversations in VIP
Mm-hmm.
where I wish that was longer, right? So I think getting to connect in different ways, they scratch different itches.
And there's a huge difference, but both have such a impact. Whereas, like, you know, you're sitting down with a client for an hour and you're like in the room with them, impacting them in such a way, but also you have songs reaching millions of people that are like, oh, this is the song like I needed for me. It's like helping me, and but it's just two different ways of helping someone, like vastly different. Like, sure, in the music you're reaching way more people, but nowhere near as impacting as you are as like being like their therapist in the room with them. Like you're helping them specifically, you know?
Yeah, I mean, in like a song, like you get numb to comments, you get numb to messages. I gotta be very careful with how I say this because I'm honored when people message us and like share their stories. I love that. But like as human beings, like you kind of become used to things,
Mm-hmm.
right? Numb to seeing things. And so it's not that it doesn't mean anything, but like I think my wake up call was when we went to Montreal for our first show outside of Utah or Idaho ever was in Montreal, Canada. It's like we were these kids who had just never toured, and we drive our van from Salt Lake City, Utah to Montreal. And we finish our set, and there's a line of 100 people waiting to talk to me. And it was like 90 minutes, people just like crying to me. It was like what is this that we've created?
Right.
Like, you know, this is unreal. And so like as powerful as comments and messages are, it just doesn't hit the same until that person's in front of you, you know?
I definitely see what you're saying. Like I can't compare in the scale that you do, but like I know what you mean by that, because I feel like I get a little bit of that like spillover from your fan base, because I've literally reacted to every CS song, and like 75% of my viewers are CS fans. So like I can, on a much like lower scale, I know what you mean by that.
Yeah, no, I'm just excited. Like I've never been more excited to talk about a new album,
Yeah.
get into stuff like that than I am now. And I hope that translates when people listen to it. We definitely like are a little like we purposely picked a first single that makes us a little anxious. We purposely put some songs in there that make us a little anxious because we love them, we're excited, but it's a little out of the comfort zone, you know. So
When's that first single? Is it early March?
March, early middle March, I think. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I'm excited for that. I'll be on that, man. What is something that CS fans won't expect on this album? Like, I know you've talked about it a lot already, but like, what's maybe a new element introduced, a new aspect, just something that you maybe have never done in CS before, or maybe done it once and never came back to it, whether it's like instrumentally or like some vocal style or something.
I'm just like pulling up the track listing here because that'll be easier. The first song that comes to mind is, and it's funny. I want to invite everyone that listens to this record to chill until you've heard the whole thing,
Okay.
right? People could hear a song and be like, he lied, he said this is gonna be heavier, or like vice versa, like he said there were gonna be like ballady stuff too. Like I purposefully wanted to, like, okay, on this song let's piss off the metalheads and let's go super soft and intimate, and on this song let's make all the ballad only people really uncomfortable, you know. Like um, we took some pride and enjoyed being kind of like uh, all over the place in that regard, but it's also CS. It's also us. You know, there's a song on the album called Better Off Broken. And when we were scoring the record, like when we were scoring the demos, we'd rank them 1 to 10 and then add the scores and total them and stuff. There's only one demo out of all 70 that got 10s across the board, and it was that song. And it's the most ballady song on the record.
Okay.
And that's a metalhead. Cooper likes the heavier stuff. Kyle does too. But that was the only one that got all 10s. And what's cool about that song is the song is about those sessions when I have a client show up and I can just tell they're totally checked out. Like they don't want to be there anymore. They don't want to do it anymore. And I have to kind of drag it out of them. And, you know, the song, the verses, the whole song is written from the perspective of the client. And the lyrics are like, I'm feeling so anxious. I step in your office. Here, how was your week? How do you feel? It's hard to be honest. Like it's the client, like sharing their experience of what it's like to be in therapy. And then the chorus is just, it's super simple. It's just, you know, why is healing so hard? And why does numb feel like my only friend? Like it just talks about, you know, the tagline is, I'm so tired of tearing the traumas back open. Am I better off broken? You know, like, am I better off just quitting at this point and just accepting this as like the norm, like as my baseline? Because it's so exhausting to keep opening up this stuff and trying over and over and over again. And so I think that perspective in a Citizen Soldier song is so unique. And what I love about it is like, we knew that's not going to be our most popular song. Like it's so specific to someone going to therapy. But I know without a doubt there's going to be a kid sitting outside of their therapist's office a year from now sobbing to that song. And that gives me goosebumps.
Right.
Like I live for that, you know? And so that's something that I think is going to be different. Just to give you another like throwback, there's a really cool song, very like Star Set coded as far as production and stuff. It's called Feelings Aren't Forever. And it feels like Buried Alive meets Golden Weather kind of vibes. Like it's very orchestral and heavy, but like people are going to hear that song and just be like, this is the most like comfortable, familiar Citizen Soldier song ever. But like it's the string guitar synth thing done right, the way that we wanted to. But what's so cool about that song is it's EMDR therapy. It's about a client in EMDR. And it's about them showing up to therapy and having to face all the ugly stuff. And me as a therapist having to be like, hey, you're going to feel all this ugly stuff. It's going to feel like you're dying and you're going to get out of it. And I'm going to be right here at the other side. And you can do it. You've done it before. We're going to do it again. Feelings are not forever. You're going to survive this. And that song is right before Better Off Broken.
Okay.
So pushing the client, pushing the client, pushing the client. And the result of that sometimes is some burnout.
I hope a lot of people watch this video, because something that like I think is very nice to have as like I wouldn't say I'm a critic, but like, you know, there's been times like it's just kind of like natural, like I don't like a specific part, whatever it may be. I think like talking to you one on one and hearing the way things were made or like where they stemmed from, I think that's a very powerful thing to have. Whether like it's just a fan watching interviews from their favorite band on YouTube, like hearing that, it gives you a different perspective on it. Because like for example, I think it was Feels Like a Funeral, right? That was the one that about the postpartum depression, right? If I'm not mistaken. That was one when I did like my album reaction. I don't know if you watched that or not, but like that was something I was like, yeah, like this one, it's like obviously not for me. Like this is like for us very specific thing. I like can't relate to this at all. It's just not like it's not my thing, you know? But like when you hear like from you specifically like talking about how that's something I said when I listened to that song. I was like, this isn't for me, but there are so many people out there that it is exactly for, and that's like what's important. And I think when like I, as a critic, or just other people who are like, yeah, that song's just not my thing, like when they hear you talk about where those ideas and like stories stem from, it's like, okay, I can gain like a different respect for that now, hearing that from like directly from you.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think that having some context and knowing the backstory can absolutely open up your mind and your heart a little bit to what's being communicated. And you know what's funny is like sometimes you write something that you think is very niche and it's not. Like I wrote a song on the album to be my selfish song, like this song's for Jake's song, and I don't care how it does. And like I thought it was so specific to me that no one else would like relate to it. And looking back, I feel dumb. But because sometimes we think our experience is so like I'm the only person that feels like this, right? But I wrote this song called Inner Critic on this album, and what's cool about it is like inner critic is used all throughout the verses, but that term is not used once in the chorus, which it can become very predictable. Like, okay, here comes the name of the song at the end of the chorus, or you know what I mean? Like it can feel very like stale in the approach, but like that was the song that like when we got to that song, a lot of people were like, wow, this might be the best song on the album. What multiple people said is like, yeah, this is definitely the one that hits too close to home. And our producer like was like, yeah, I don't even want to listen to this song again after it's mixed.
Wow.
Too, way too personal. So sometimes we think it's not going to resonate, and it's the opposite.
If you had to guess from the new album, what would you think would be my favorite song? Like knowing what I like, you know, over the years reacting to you guys, like what would be my favorite? Because I think I have a very like perception of me where it's like, oh, I'm the guy that likes the heavy and the screams and stuff. But honestly, I'm finding like getting older and like maturing, it's like I feel like I'm betraying my younger self, but like these days, like I do prefer less heavy songs. I think that's just something maybe not everyone obviously, but a lot of people end up doing as they get older. They're like, I don't like that stuff as much as I used to. You know, I still love a good old breakdown with like a O going into it or something, but it's like I'm finding myself liking the more just like story driven, just melodic with that energy where it really hits. And I'm excited for this new record because of that. Where I'm going when it comes to my taste, that makes me excited. But what would you think would be my favorite?
I think you'll appreciate the last two as a musician. I think you'll enjoy the heavy moments on those.
Okay.
But I think, I don't know, like Too Loud, that's one that just like, it ended up being like one of the less progressive ones on the album because like once it was done, we just didn't want to do anything to it. It just felt so good. You know, that's a very personal one that I wrote about my anxiety that I've struggled with since I was really young, like a kid. And I like as a kid, I worried about things that a kid should never even be thinking about, you know, and um, it talks about my desire to like conversations with my wife where I'm just like, I wish I could show you how loud it gets up here and like how many different things I'm trying to organize and think about at once and how overwhelmed I feel all the time. And obviously a lot of people can relate, right? So that's one that like I think you'll probably really enjoy. Um, I'm going to be really interested to hear what you think about The Liar.
Okay.
Yeah, that's Dead Butterflies is really, really
That
fun.
one intrigues me with the title.
We have a creepy kids choir, and
Yeah, that's something I was actually, I don't mean to like steer away from the original question, but I often, oddly, this isn't like a particular like favorite song like out of your guys' catalog, but it's one I think about a lot is Just Be Happy. It's like one I randomly like, I just think about and I'm like, do you guys plan on doing more stuff like that theme? Because like I remember when that came out, and like that was a while ago. And I remember when it came out, and like sitting down to do the video, and like I tried to add like a whole spooky theme and everything. And like for some reason, I had it in my mind that that was going to be like a tradition, you know, like when spooky season rolls around, like oh, spooky CS dropped. But like I guess it's you guys haven't done it like crazy, so I was interested to see if you guys ever talk about or plan on going back to ideas like that.
it was never like let's write a Halloween song. It was more like, oh, what's the best song to put in October? And if we
Okay.
have something that's kind of eerie, we put it there. This is definitely creepy.
Okay.
It's a cool song. I wrote this song with Johnny Andrews, and who I wrote most of Icarus with. And it's very, very catchy. It's got that really creepy kids choir on it, and the dead butterflies just represent like all of the like Twitter patient excitement, anticipation,
Mm,
every good sensation and emotion just being lost on you, and just feeling like you don't know how to get them. Like you're poking them with the stick. You're like, wake up, dude!
yeah.
Like, I need some dopamine. I need to feel something, and just how like meaningless life can feel. So like to not get too complicated, it's just a really unique portrayal of depression and numbness, right? But it's what I love about how relatable it is like the verses just talk about like um, you know, the jokes that got me through the day, all the friends that kept me sane, the faith I couldn't live without means nothing now, means nothing now. Like it's a laundry list of like all the things that like would get you out of bed, but now you just could not care less, right? And the chorus is just like I'm drowning in dead butterflies. Like I'm just that's all I got inside of me. I'm just this empty shell walking around with all these dead insects inside of me. And we thought that was a really cool and captivating image. And so we kind of
Yeah.
lean into, and that song has a really like the chorus is very chanty,
Mm.
face to face sort of way, but it's got a nasty riff. It has a nasty breakdown. I think that might be one where we down, down. I think it's one. It's either that one or it ends with me. I can't remember where we do a breakdown in the bridge, and then we repeat the breakdown after the last chorus half speed, and it's just filthy. It's just so like it feels very knocked loose.
Oh
esque.
wow. I'm gonna have to like subconsciously block this out of my mind so when I react to him I'm like oh yeah that part. But I don't know about I'm sure the people watching this are already super excited, but you have gotten me like stoked for this. Like I this is probably like my most like anticipated release from you guys like this. Just from like you talking about these songs I'm like wow, I'm like I can't wait for these songs to come out and check them out.
Well,
um
I'm glad you're excited, and I'll say like my disclaimer to everyone watching this is like I feel strongly that if you will wait until you've heard all 18 and sit with it, it may not be your favorite Citizen Soldier album, but it will be one of your favorites. Like I really do feel that way. Like I'd be shocked to hear someone say
mhm.
like all they missed on this one. I'd really be surprised. I mean, like there are songs on this album like I Believe You, Sit in Your Shadows, Better Than I Used to Be, that which by the way is the consensus. Like everyone says that's the best song on the album. Like that was the one Matt was like, this is the best song you've written, this Better Than I
Mhm.
Used to Be song. Like those are so familiar because like we didn't approach this album as like let's check all the boxes. but it does. Like people who want Burden are gonna love a lot of the songs on this record. People who want Thank You for Hating Me or something a little bit darker, or Monster Made of Memories, are gonna, really love a lot of what's on here. So I just think people need to be patient, and if like there's gonna be a song on the record that they're like, pass, and that's okay. But I think it needs to be appreciated as a body of work.
I know that Scarecrow is your favorite CS album, or at least you said that in that album announcement. With you guys having like a pretty, like, I know to you it probably feels like it's been like forever, but like in compared to a lot of bands, you guys have had like a lot of music in like a short like lifespan of a band. So I know this is going to be super difficult, but like not what your favorite, what CS song are you most like proud of? Like of all time, whether it's coming up on this album or if it's an oldie or one that's not even coming out on this album. That's hard.
I'm really proud of Better Than I Used to Be.
Okay.
Because I think it's simple, but I think it's beautifully simple. Like, it's a song that I pitched to a couple of my co-writers, and they were like, I don't know. I don't know if I see it, Jake. And I kind of lit a fire in me because I was like, no, like there's something here. And I just finished it on my own, and I'm proud of myself for doing that. But I mean, it's this idea that like we have a lot of songs that are really dark and songs that are uplifting, but we don't have a song that's like, something that I find myself telling my clients is like, our brains are programmed to be negative. They're programmed to see the threats, right? It is hard to ground ourselves and slow down and like celebrate the wins, even the wins that are like lowercase w, very lowercase w, right? And so like if we don't slow down and look behind us every now and then, we never enjoy the growth that we're making, and like the chorus of this, it's so simple. The chorus is, I still got mountains to climb on my way out of bed. I've still got oceans to cross inside of my own head. But that's all right with me. I'm not losing sleep. I'm a little bit better than I used to be.
Oh, I love that.
The whole song is just like, and the song is like, it's got like a pop punk riff in the verse, and it's like fun and bouncy, but like emotional. I'm just really proud of where we got that song. And like, I'd be very proud if people took that song and were like, this is Citizen Soldier. It's fun. It doesn't have to be all depressing all the time. And it's such a good message. And that bridge is one of my favorite bridges on the entire record, because the bridge says, I was trying to see the bright side with a blindfold on. I was obeying all my thoughts as if they're never wrong, ignoring all resistance, wishing I was strong. So when I want to be the martyr, I'm just going to try a little harder. Like it talks about like recognizing, not in like a beating yourself up sort of way, but just like I tend to, believe a little bit, buy into my own BS a little harder than I need to most of the time, right? Like I need to call myself out a little bit more on this and not necessarily make myself, maybe not nail myself up at the cross as often as I do, and recognize that, I could probably be doing a little bit more than I am. I just think that song is like the perfect bulletin board material song for so many people. Like the song that you hit play on when you need to get out of bed, the song that's going to be your alarm song. I think Better Than I Used to Be, I'm really proud of. From the rest of the catalog, man, I'm really proud of Always December. And I never understood.
It's my favorite.
Yeah, I never understood why that song, like I wrote that song and I showed it, like I pulled Juanita into a room away from everyone else and I played it for him, and he looked at me and he said, I hate you. Like in a joking way, because like he was like, that's the best thing you've ever written. And I don't think I've ever had like a more like wow moment in writing music than that song, because it just came like, and that's not how it is with me. It's pretty deliberate with me, but with that song, it was just like, I started singing it and the whole thing just spilled out of me in like 20 minutes, and we released it and like people love it. Like it's a song that people love, but it's not even in our top 50.
No, it's people often ask me what my favorite CS song is, And for a while, I struggle with it, and then like it always comes down like always December. Like that's the one. It's so infectious. Like ever since I reacted to it, like I was just like, yeah, like I come back to that one more than any of them. And you'd think like I was talking about, it's like you'd think I'd pick like Life Sentence or like something, but it's like it's that one, man. It's that one. Like something about that song. One time my girlfriend was somewhere and I was like, wait, she's at a doctor's appointment. And I was like waiting in the waiting room. And like sometimes like, you know how it is, like writing songs, you just like randomly think of something and I'm like, oh, pull out my notes app, write this. And I'm like, what the fuck does this sound like? And it's like, and I'm like, oh, I just wrote Always December with different lyrics on accident. But yeah, I love that one too. It's a good one.
All the time. I think that the only other one I can think of is, as far as like as a songwriter, it's really hard to do something new. Like You Are Enough. That's been done. Like I'm proud of that song. I love that song. I think it's a great song. Like, is it the most unique message in the world? No. But I don't think that's like it's needed. And that's what matters, right? But what I'm trying to say is like that song is just like so like down the middle, works for everyone. And like as a songwriter, sometimes you want to write that song that's like not a flex, but like it's working out your songwriter muscles, and it's clever and it's unique, and you can say that no one else has done it. I remember when we uploaded this song to Spotify, there was not another song with that title at the time, I think, and it was Words That Don't Exist. And I remember writing that song. I was in a session with Clayton Blue, who's a producer in Salt Lake City, and we were writing, and I was like, I want to write a song about self-harm that people who struggle with that are like, this is the only song that gets it. And I remember being in that session and being like, so I'll be here writing on my wrist all these words that don't exist. And he was just like, oh my gosh. Like we were like, that's like, the second you write that, you're like, we can't ruin this. We can't screw this up. Like like the hard part is over, right? This is the have it.
You got to bring it now. Like
now we gotta bring it. And like, we got very poppy and like cool on that song, but it doesn't feel like, it's not like we were trying too hard to be weird with it or anything. It just like, it felt right and cool and fresh and different. And we, for a while live, did a piano version of that song. And I loved singing that song over the piano. Really, really love that song. So I'd say those three are some that I'm really proud of.
That's another one of my favorites actually. But to flip flop on that question, you spoke on earlier how there's like some songs in your early discography where you're like, you have no idea why people like them. If you could delete one CS song from existence, First, really?
I would drop Kick It Off a Bridge right now if I could.
I wouldn't.
I would hold it under the water to try to resurface to make sure it died.
I don't hate that one. I'm gonna answer my own question. I think it would be Death of Me off the first album. I think that would be it.
Funny that you say that, because I think the verses are so bad and I wouldn't produce it the way we did, and it's like weird the way it comes in. I think that chorus, while very butt rock and very down the middle, I think if produced right, I think the chorus and the melody is cool. I remember Matt putting down the solo for that and being pumped on it and being like, this is a really cool hook. But I get it. Like that whole record, other than Weight of the World and maybe Never Good Enough, I can, dump in the river, no problem.
Yeah, I recently, or not recently, but I started because like the way you guys have released your music with like pretty much every song being singles, for a long time I never did like album reactions to you guys. It would just be like, check out every individual song, and then when the album comes out, like why would I react to the album? I know all the songs already, no one wants to see that. But like a couple months ago, I started going like live on Twitch and reacting to the old albums in full because I realized that hearing those songs in context of a record will change, like whether it's like this song is before this song, so it makes this one hit harder, or whatever the case may be. This song is the outro track, so it hits harder having that context. So I did that. I didn't get like far through. We did Relentless and Down the Rabbit Hole, and This Is Your Sign Part 1, and we haven't done any more of the series since. But revisiting that Relentless album, I actually really enjoyed hearing those songs as the full record. Like I understand as like the creator of that, you can look back and kind of cringe a little bit, if especially like how far you guys have progressed in your talents and like especially like production wise and stuff. But I a lot of those songs are actually like really stellar.
Well, I'm being a bit of a drama queen because there are moments that I love. Like, I think the bridge on Better Place is really cool. The way we did that, I could not play that guitar part for you if I wanted to, but I remember writing it, the picking part, and I tracked it too. I remember being like, "Oh yeah, that's my alter bridge," uh, moment. It's so cool. And then Matt had this awesome solo over it. So there are moments that I think are awesome. I just think like you listen to that and it's like watching the really awkward, unpolished, tall high school basketball player, and the scouts are like, okay, like there's potential here. It looks kind of awkward now, but I can see it.
Um, that was one I was actually going to mention. I like that song a lot, but my grandmother passed away from cancer in 2021. My mom's mom, and my mom was obviously really struggling with that. And it was like months later, I was like, all right, now that's like kind of died down a little bit, I want to show her some like music that can like help, dry out those emotions or whatever. And that was actually a song that I sent her that she listens to this day. Like she does not like, she's not really a big like modern rock person at all. Like she hates metal and stuff, but that was one that I sent her. I was like, hey mom, like, yeah, I do, because like for a long time I'd really tried not to let any family know about my whole YouTube thing. And she didn't know about it for a long time. I was like, hey, I know that I do these like review things, and there's this song I checked out, and I think you'd really like it a lot. And she's like, to this day, like she'll randomly like send me a screenshot of it being on her Spotify, and she'll like send like a crying emoji because like that's one that like it really affects her.
That makes me like, sometimes that means more than someone who like binge listens to your music, because it's like they're not supposed to like what you do, but there's just like one song that for some reason just really resonates. And I appreciate you telling me that. That's really cool. That's really special. And before I forget, I'm looking at the track listing for Family Heirlooms, and one thing one song that I forgot about when you asked like what are you most proud of, I'm proud to have done my first co-write with my little brother, which I've never done. He looks, if anyone's met Joey, they'll tell you he just looks like a younger, more handsome, healthier version of me. And he's a rapper, and he lives in Japan. And I always thought our music style was just like a little bit too different for us to collaborate, but he's a great lyricist. Mm-hmm. Really, really guy, and has a really good, unique lens on things. Wow. And he was on tour with us, just like teching for us for fun. And he showed me this chorus hook that he had, and I was like, Joey, this is money. Like, it wasn't even a hook, it was just lyrics. No melody, just lyrics. And the song we co-wrote is called Bulletproof. And what I love about it is like you hear that title in rock and you just start rolling your eyes immediately.
I immediately thought of Godsmack, like immediately.
This song is the opposite of that.
Wow.
It's not this I'm bulletproof. Like it's if pain makes you strong, why do I feel so weak? If pain makes you strong, why doesn't it work for me? If pain makes you strong after what I've been through, if pain makes you strong, I should be bulletproof.
Wow. That's huge.
It's like, and he told me that, and I was like, dude, like the hard part's done. Let's just finish this. And so, but what's funny is then the song ended up being really hard to write because we wrote the chorus together, and then he kind of trusted me. He's like, do your thing, like write some awesome verses and stuff. And I was like, oh, I just wrestled with it forever, but I finally got it and sent it to him, and he was like, it's perfect. So that's the song where we just went like nuts on guitar wise. Like it's got this very like Disturbed meets 3 Days Grace kind of coded riff, and then it has like a guitar solo after the first chorus. Block all this out for future memory.
Yeah.
But like, what's cool about it is I was like talking to Kyle Odell as we were working through it, and I was like, we're trying to like take this unique angle on this message. So let's make the song sonically like the most like bro song ever, like lifted truck, like let's make the riffs nuts, let's make the two solos in the song. Like the song is about like I should be strong but I'm not, and the instrumental is so like massive and muscles and just like the dudes on stage and guitar with like their arms ripping out of their shirts, right? Like, but then it drops off this soft chorus at the end that's just like piano and like the most delicate moment ever. And then it goes from that to just like this shred fest over the chorus chords and stuff. So like there's a lot of thought that goes into these songs where it's like it's cool that we're like even the music is in a way enhancing the message, right? It's like I like this song is huge and it makes me feel powerful and giant, but the lyrics and the melody are saying the opposite.
Yeah, at contrast.
So I'm really excited for something that he helped me write.
That's awesome. That must be such a like a proud feeling to have of that. Like not just the work you guys did together, but like as your like him being your younger brother. That's super sick.
Well, he's been so complimentary of me and everything I do, and like so kind and gracious that like I was afraid to write with him. I was like, oh, is he gonna like find out that I'm a fraud? Am I gonna like drop the ball? And but it was fun. Like he pushed me, and there were part like I'd write certain parts, and he was like, "Nah, I don't think that's it." And I was like, "No, you're probably right. I think let me try again," you know, and vice versa. I think we were able to kind of push each other and get it where it needed to be. And I would absolutely do it again.
Yeah. Who's someone that you like number one like to write with? Like who is that person?
And I think Brent from Shinedown would be wild. Um, I hear he's a very intense human being, like more
Really?
than you would think. Like he seems very approachable and sweet on social media, and I'm not
Yeah.
saying he's not.
Mm-hmm.
I hear he's very intense and intimidating. So I think he'd be an interesting person to write with. Um,
You gotta manifest that. That's gotta happen. That's gotta happen.
Max Martin, like some giant pop writer would be cool just to kind of like watch their process. I think it'd be really cool. I'd love to write with Mark from Alter Bridge and just like watch his process. I mean, I'd love to work with people from different genres. I think it's fun to like, I've always wanted to work with some, I think it'd be really fun for me to like keep Citizen Soldier what it is sonically, but to write with some country writers because
Mm-hmm.
they're great at telling stories. And I think that's so much of what the band does, right? So
It's unfortunate how much the rock metal world hates on country, and they don't realize how much of a foundation it instilled for songwriting, storytelling. Like,
it's so much better at writing songs than us, man. Like,
like I grew up on country, and to this day, I love it. Like in my Discord server, like we have a little chat where it's like send like just song sharing. Like if there's a song, okay, I want you guys to listen to this. I'll randomly put in like a country song, and everyone be like, "You, Future, you're the breakdown guy. Why do you like that?" And I'm like, dude, it's amazing. It is amazing.
yeah, I mean, like country writers, man, like they don't mess around. Like rock, I've written with some like big writers in rock, and they're awesome. But like rock is a very laid back world compared to country. Like country, you show up to a writing session and it's pretty like, you know,
On the surface, it seems so simple, but it's like it's not.
oh,
It's not.
these dudes are just like masters of their craft. They're machines, you know. But I also think when you get that good, things can also start to sound mechanical and forced, depending. Like I think there's like a lot of country that you can tell when it's like, okay, let's write a hit country song for this young girl who's hot right now, right? As opposed to like, oh, this guy really has a story to tell, let's help him tell it. You know, you can tell when it's something that's real.
Who's your favorite like old school country artist and like modern right now?
And I mean, Chris Stapleton's incredible. Growing up, I listened to a lot of like pop country just because like I'd be in my mom's car and that'd be what
Hmm.
she like she listened to a lot of Keith Urban.
Dude, Keith Urban's my favorite
Yeah,
country artist.
great. He's a great guitar player too. I don't know if you knew that.
Yep.
But new, I'm more of a fan of songs than artists when it comes to new. But like, I'll just listen to country top radio, and like, I'll just wait for the hook to drop, and I'm just like, oh my gosh.
I couldn't like that. That's exactly what I would say. Like new age country, I don't like specific people, but like there's songs by so many people that I like.
Well,
Yeah,
that song by Gabby, I can't remember her name, but like, I
yeah.
I hope, and then I hope she cheats,
Mm.
like you tell me, like that song. Like I thought that hook was so genius and smart and clever, and like it turns itself on its head. Like I just love that as a writer. Like I'm less genre focused now, and more just like I want to hear an amazing hook or an amazing melody or just like something said that hasn't been said that way before.
I think my favorite like modern country song is "Till You Can't" by Cody Johnson. I think it is. I just that I like love that premise of that song so much. That's something like I struggle with like so often. Just like thinking about like time passing on too quick and losing time with family members and stuff like that. It's like there's something about that story in that song. It's like it's so on the surface like generic country, and it's like a radio hit. And like I remember one of my best online friends, he like hates country, and over the years I've like tried to like sprinkle in songs like, hey man, I know you hate it, but like this one might change your mind. And that song like came on, and I was like, oh, this is so good, I'm gonna try and get Anthony to like this. And I sent it to him, and he was like, I heard 5 seconds and turned it off, I can't. And I'm just like, oh man, I wish you could see it through my eyes. It's like that song is beautiful.
People have their biases for sure, and you know, like everyone has their taste, but I can relate a lot to that like feeling of urgency all the time, like time slipping and feeling like you're running behind. I mean, Hospital Bed is a great depiction of that. And there's a song that didn't make the record that I was actually thinking about today, because like I don't like going back and using old demos because I'm always like, I'm a better writer now, I can beat these. But one that I'm like, I might just need to put this in the next batch is a song called Out of Tomorrows. And the chorus is just about like, what if I run out of tomorrows?
Oh, that's gonna hurt. That's gonna hurt, man.
Well, the whole song is just about like procrastination. It's like, what if I get buried with all the bad things I swore I'd change? You know, like, what if I run out of tomorrows and um, I never learned how to live in today? You know, like that's every day for me. You know, it's like every day I think we kind of like put our head in our pillow and we're like, wasn't my best effort. You know, I could have done this better. I could have done this. I probably should have done this. And it's easy to get stuck on those things. But I just noticed I have like 9 more minutes. Do you have any other questions about the album that I haven't addressed, or any specific songs that you were curious about, or anything that
think
stands out?
think we hit all the nails, man. I really appreciate you. If you got anything you want to say, obviously I know you got your own social media to promote stuff on, but if anything you want to say to the people, there's going to be quite a few people watching this, I imagine. So if you got anything, bud.
I'm looking at the track listing and I'm trying to think if there are any more interesting um, tidbits. Um, Something I'll spoil here, just so people have a little bit of ammo from this, is there's a song called Figure Me Out that will either be the first single or the second. I won't spoil which one, but um, I'm really excited for people to hear the first, that is like that being the first song on the album. Because I think it's the perfect like um, entrance to this world that this album is, you know, just not knowing how to make sense of yourself or if anyone will ever be able to help you get there. And the verses are just talking about, you know, I'm running out of therapists, I'm running out of medicine. Like, it feels like all the doors are getting slammed in my face and I'm not getting any closer to answers, you know. And that's one that I also just like, we'd be listening to it after recording and I'm just pacing the room and just like, I love this song, man, I love this song. I'm super excited about this song. And what's cool, something to look forward to in listening to that song that we did is, even with things like riffs, it's so easy to feel like you're writing the same riff 100 times. You know this, like you play guitar, it's like you're writing a riff and you're like, I've written this before. What am I doing? Like, and that song, we experimented with like having a riff, but like layering these like almost like whale sound-esque. Like there's a moment in one of our songs called Weight of the World where my falsetto is just kind of echoing out. It's like a moody, sad falsetto thing. And we're like, what if we like used that over like a heavy riff as like part of the riff? Like part of the riff in the drop is like this like moody, like, because Figure Me Out, that song just feels like you're sinking and you're sinking and you're sinking. And so it's like a rock song, but like we use these like falsetto hooks in the song to just make it feel very like almost like a child in pain. Someone just like hurting and I was going to say moaning, and I'm like, nope, that's not the word. That's not the word to say. That'd be a very different song. But very excited for people to hear that one in the next couple months. I think people will love that song. I just think that I'm really excited a year from now to see what the narrative is about this record. Whether people are like, I respect it, but it's not my cup of tea, or it's my favorite, or I'm going to be really interested to see what people like, where people rank it in the catalog for them.
I think getting the background on this, talking to you one-on-one, I think that'll like change my outlook on checking you guys out going further. For some reason, I just have that vibe. As far as like the singles, will they be being released by how they are on the track list, or are you picking and choosing? Yeah, okay. I was curious where it's like a concept album, if it'd be like trying to keep that going from like, all right, track 1, single 1, track 2, single 2,
We thought about doing that. It's just logistically it was too hard because like on Dead Butterflies, we're waiting to get the kids choir back to mix it. So we're pushing that one to Halloween. And like some songs will take longer to mix. And also just like with the album tracks, we basically just said like, what are the songs that are like the most progressive and least single friendly? And as far as singles, like which songs are the most accessible to the general public, right? Because we're trying to balance releasing a concept record, making sure people understand what it is as like a piece of art, but also just like marketing who we are to people who, because the person on TikTok that hears Better Off Broken isn't going to have a clue about any of this, right? But they still might love it. So it's just trying to balance all those things.
Can we expect any music videos for this album cycle? Because we haven't gotten one since, was it Limit was the last one with Flow Spirit?
We're talking about green screening ourselves and incorporating like footage of us in the lyric videos.
Okay.
But like for all of them.
Wow. All right.
Music videos are just, it's so much money, and they're always the lowest performers for us. Like we send some money to this guy in Egypt that makes these lyric videos for us, and they just blow.
They make such a difference. Like I like love that, having that, and like no other band does it for every song. And like it does make a difference, because I remember when Icarus dropped and I did my album reaction, and I guess there was like 3 songs on it that weren't released already. Like 3 non-singles when I did the album reaction, maybe 4, and like they didn't have the lyric videos. And it's like you could like tell the difference in how those lyric videos impact so much.
Well, and like we recognize though that like it's good to have a music video thrown in every now and then to like, oh, like cool, they're still human beings, they exist. Like I can see their faces. There's Jake, there's Cooper. But like with everything we have going on, like prepping for tours and doing all this stuff, it gets pretty overwhelming to like, no one's excited about spending like 20 grand and like standing around somewhere for like 16 hours one day. But I think we are going to incorporate footage of us into these videos because we want to keep what makes the lyric videos great. But like, we can't do the same thing we've been doing for the next 5 years. Like we're running out of colors. We're running out of themes. Like I think that incorporating us into them will make it feel a little bit more like, oh, we're performing the song, but you can still like the
Hmm.
message is lost on you. The words are still there. So that's what we're going to try and do is we're going to try and kind of blend those approaches on this one.
The reason I ask is because like with the concept record, I had this like when you were talking about it, I had this like I kind of zoned out and just had this vision of like a specific song where like since it's so story driven, that's such good opportunity to like make that film clip where you could take like for instance the one you were talking about where they have massive anxiety before going into their therapy appointment. You could like take a shot like a dark shot of them like and then you could split between clips of you guys playing the song going back into what they're dealing with. Like I feel like there's some opportunity there. That's why I asked. But
No, I think you're right. I think it's definitely an opportunity. I mean, we had some ideas for ICU for a video for that song. We thought that would have been really cool. It didn't happen. It's hard when you have 5 people and you're trying to
yeah.
schedule and stuff, but I'm with you. I think that content like that helps. I think part of what we worry about sometimes is when we paint a picture too vividly, sometimes people struggle to insert their own story
Hmm.
into it. But I think people also like a story can be really compelling. It can make it more emotionally accessible too. So I think if we were to do a music video for this album, I think it would probably be for like a Too Loud or Inner Critic or something that kind of feels cinematic. But we'll see. We have time. And the good news is we really wanted to balance giving people enough, making sure that we do lots of singles. And like, I see people complain all the time, like, why so many singles? Like bands used to do 2 or 3 singles and drop a record. And it's like, you spend tens of thousands of dollars making these songs. And if you drop them all at the same time, it's just like flushing money down the toilet, right? Like they don't reach nearly as many people. But I also understand that like as a fan, you want to have an album to be excited about when it's released. And if you've already heard all the songs, you're like, oh, okay, like it's already here. So we feel like we balanced that pretty well. So there's going to be 12 singles. And then when it releases, there's going to be 6,
I think
which
I think that's a good mix. I think that's pretty good.
we still feel like that's a lot of songs to react to and to hear when the album's out.
Yeah, I'm excited for that, man. Well, I'll let you get out of here, man. I appreciate this opportunity, dude. This is a super sick time. This is really giving me just a different like perspective of you and the band, like just talking to you one on one. I'd love to potentially like after the record's out, get back on here and talk about the songs because like I'm super fucking excited for these songs, man. I really am.
Awesome, man. No, I appreciate you. Your time's just as valuable as mine. So I appreciate you making the time. Maybe next time we can talk about how Dexter is one of the greatest TV
Let's
shows.
go. Yes.
I'm watching Original Sin right now. It's amazing.
I've been struggling because I want to react to it, but I'm like weighing whether I should or not because like I don't really I like I've dabbled in like TV and movie reactions, but it's not my niche really. So I still have not watched any of it. I
Do that for music already. Not everything has to be work. You could just let yourself enjoy them.
I have this horrible like complex of if it's something on the computer, I like have to make it a video. Like it's I've been doing this. I've been doing that for 7 years. 2018, I started making videos, and it's been like that. If I'm playing a video game, if I'm listening to something, it has to be a fucking video. But I'm working on that.
I think you're gonna love it. And anytime we're passing through on tour, if we're close by to you, let me know. We're happy to guest list you, get you in for free.
Yeah.
Uh,
You guys came through Kansas City. I live really close to Kansas City, and I wanted to make it to that. There's just way too much going on. So like, I definitely next time though.
Time we're happy to. I think we're gonna do Missouri later this year at some point. But no, I appreciate your time and yeah, reach out if you need anything.
Thank you so much, sir. I'll talk to you another time.
Okay.
All
Take
right.
care. Talk to you soon.
See ya.